Have you ever wondered how artists use light to create such powerful emotions? Well, you're in the right place. In this video, we're going to be exploring how light and shadows can completely change the way the artwork looks and feels. I'll show how lighting adds depth, create focus, and set the mood of a piece, even turning a simple sketch into a dimensional image. So let's break it down on how and why it works. To create art with a strong, defined sense of depth in a 3D space, we first need to look past all the complicated details and features by breaking down the body into basic forms. For example, head can be simplified into a sphere, while torso and limbs can be built by using cubes and cylinders. By learning to see objects this way, you can have a better understanding in proportions, keeping your structure consistent and making your drawings feel more grounded in three-dimensional spaces. Now that we break everything down into simple shapes, the next step is to bring it into life. This is where lighting becomes important. But before we get into complex lighting setup, we'll start with the basics by looking how the light wraps around in a simple form. Beginning with a sphere. Step 1 is to set up your base color, which is going to be your starting color. Step 2 is light source, where the light is coming from. For example, the sun, a lamp, or a window. Step 3 is the highlights. The areas of the object that are closest to the light source receives the most direct light. Step 4, the shadow side. It's the area of the object where it's not directly facing towards the light source. Shadows are created based on the angle and position of the light, including the form of the object, not simply just distance. Step 5, midtones/halftones. The true color of the objects found between the highlights and the shadows. This is where the light is less directed. Step 6 is the core shadow. The darkest part of the object in the surface where it forms turns away from the lighting. It's not on the edge because the light still bounces from the surrounding environment, and slightly brighter from the outer areas of the shadows through the reflective light. Which leads to Step 7, reflective light. It's the light that bounces off the surrounding surfaces back into the shadow area of an object. This also prevents shadows from looking completely dark and helps with more natural and connected to the environment scenery. Just a little note that core shadows and reflective lights might sound a bit complex at first, but once you understand them visually, they become a key secret to making an object feel truly 3D. Step 8 is the cast shadow. It's the form or the silhouette of the object that is projected onto another surface. It's when it blocks the light source. Step 9 is the accent. Not the language accent, it's the darkest point of the casting shadow, usually to the closest to the object where the light is most strongly blocked. Now we know the form and the structure, it's time to understand light direction. It's essential for setting the mood and storytelling of your artwork. Now that we understand how lights interact with the form, we can simply apply that knowledge using the single light source principle. By focusing on one primary light source, like the sun or the lamp as we mentioned, we can keep the shadows consistent, defining the 3D shape of your subject more clearly, and avoiding confusing or conflict shadow placement, while also creating more realistic environment for your subject. To help with this, using a 3D face model can be very helpful. It's a learning tool for lighting where it breaks the face down into simple planes and forms instead of one flat surface. It can help by rotating your model to match your light source, which lets you clearly see how the light and shadow behaves from different angles. This works because real face references aren't flat. Different part of the face sticks out so they naturally catch more lighting or fall into the shadows. The 3D model shows this clearly by separating the face into form structured. And what we will learn from him is by using the 3D model, you can train yourself to understanding how the lighting wraps around the structure, instead of guessing where to shade. Now that we understand the lighting on facial structure, we're going to shift into how lighting is actually applied to it. Using the references shown, I'll break down from each one, front, side, top, and bottom lighting, so you can follow along and practice with me. These are not strict rules, but simplified scenarios to help you understand how lighting affects the face before moving on to complex lighting setups. The first one is the front. But what is it? Front lighting is when the light source is directly in front of the subject, reducing strong shadows across the face. Here how it affects the face. Because of the face is evenly lit, features like the eyes, nose, and mouth becomes very clearly and easy to read. However, the reduced shadows can make the face feel flat due to the less depth and defining the form. This lighting is helpful when you want a clean, readable view of your subject, or studying facial features without heavy shadowing. Second is the top lighting. The top lighting is the light source coming from above the subject, similar to the sunlight. This lighting coming from above, like areas such as the brows, nose, and chin, naturally casting a shadow underneath them. This creates clear form and structure of the face. The top lighting is used because it feels more natural and believable. It helps create a sense of depth, realism, while keeping the lighting simple and easy to read, especially in outdoor or environmental scenes. Third is the side lighting. Now, what is the side lighting exactly? The side lighting is the light source that's coming from either the left or right side of your subject. This light only hits one side of the face, creating a strong contrast between light and shadows. This helps with defining facial structures, especially areas around like the nose, cheekbones, and mouth, making the form feels more dimensional. Side lighting also emphasizes form and depth. By clearing and separating light and shadows, it draws attention to the structure of the subject rather than just the surface details. Now the fourth option is bottom. Bottom lighting is the light source that's coming from below the subject. As the light is coming from underneath, it reverses the usual shadow pattern. Interesting, right? Areas like the nose, cheekbones, and eye sockets cast shadows upwards, which can really make the face feel distorted, sharpened, or unnatural. This creates a strong contrast that feels visually intense. Bottom lighting is used when it's create a sense of unease, powerful, or intimidation. Since we rarely see this lighting coming from below in real life, it feels very unnatural and dramatic, making it efficient for dark or emotional intense moments. Here are the 4 types of light source we learned. This is a great way to understand how light direction works from different angles. So just remember to keep practicing. Next up, I'll be talking about the process of shading on the face. The first step is the base color, which is going to be your starting color. They are the true color of your character before affecting by the light or shadows. Step 2, the light source. You're going to decide where your light source is coming from. Adding a small indicator such as a sun icon or an arrow pointing in the direction of the light helps you visually remember where your light source is coming from while you're drawing. Picking one main lighting, like from the front, side, top, or bottom, and sticking with it to keep your lighting consistent across the whole piece. Here is my layer setup. First, add a new layer above your base color and set it to clipping mask. This ensures that everything you draw stays within the silhouette of your character. And set it to multiply. Multiply darkens everything underneath instead of pure black. Shading with a deep blue or purple often keeps your colors from looking too muddy. Next, add a new layer above and set it to clipping mask. Change the layer to blending mode from normal to the lighting blending modes, such as screen or add, so the color naturally behaves like the light instead of a paint. Now the color in your lighting, this could be yellow or orange for sunlight, or honestly any color. Using warm yellows or orange for a more sunny/happy feel, or cool blues or purple for a cold nighttime mood. Whatever feeling you are using for this piece, avoid using pure white, as it can make your drawings look very chalky. Instead, you can pick a very light version of your color. For the lighting blocking tools, using lasso tool or just your brush, start blocking in the lighter areas. Lighting placement on the face, you don't have to worry about being perfect. Just focus on the general placement. A little tip is to think of your drawing as a 3D object, not a flat image. This helps with your understanding how light wraps around the form and makes your shading feels realistic and dimensional. If the light comes from above, it hits the top surface first. Areas facing towards the light are brighter, while areas turned away falls into the shadows. Once we mapped out the brightness areas of your drawing, you can move on to the darker areas, which leads to step 3, adding the shadows. Now my layer setup is adding a new layer above, set it to clipping mask, and switch it to multiply or linear burn. Using a darker or a slightly tinted color instead of pure black so your shadows stay natural and match your lighting. Colors and shadows, now we're blocking into darker areas to add 3D depth. Just like avoiding pure light for whiting, try not to use pure black for shadows, as it can make the image feel less flat. Instead, try to use tinted colors on the multiply layer, like deep blues or cooler purples for a cooler shadow. Some artists like to use warmer tones depending on the mood. There's no strict rules, so feel free to experiment and see what you like in your style. As for the shadow blocking tools, using the same methods as before, the lasso tool or the brush. Focus on blocking the darker areas facing away from your light source, are the parts of the drawings blocked away from the light, as these will naturally be your darkest part. Now for the shadow guide placement. For the face, look for areas that are underneath the chin or the crease of the upper eyelids. For the hair, think about which parts to cast the shadows on the face, or parts of the body. And as for the clothes, look for the depths in the foldings under the arms or whenever the fabric overlaps each other. Step 4 is blending the edge slightly. Now we're going to clean things up. Blending helps soften the edge between the light and the shadows, adding depth and realism. You can either use the blur tool, but carefully. It can be a bit tricky because it can be easily overused and making your shadow look messy or too soft. If overdone, it can remove the structure and make the lighting feel unclear. So remember to not overblend it. The second option is the smudge tool. It has more control. It lets you manually push and blend the colors together for a more controlled transition. And third option is softly blending brush, like watercolors. Naturally blending colors as you paint, creating a smooth and gradual transition. Here are the important parts to keep in mind. Hard light creates sharper and more defined edges, while soft light creates smoother and more blended transitions. This could change depending on the size, strength, and the distance of your light source. Stronger or closer lighting usually creates sharper edges, while softer or distant lighting creates more gradually and faded transitions. Here how it affects the face structure. The shape of your character also affects how the shadow's edges appears. Shadow forms like the jaw or the nose bridge creates a harder edge because the surface changes direction suddenly. Rounder forms like the cheeks or the forehead creates a softer shadow because the surface turns gradually away from the lighting, causing a smoother fade into the shadows. Step 5. Add simple highlights. These are the spots where light is going to hit your character mostly directly, while shadows providing depth and weight. Highlights, on the other hand, defines textures, making things look more defined or a shiny metal. Here is the highlight guide. Eyes reflections, eyes that are glossy, wet surfaces, which causes the light to reflect strongly into small, sharper highlight spots. This gives them a sense of life and depth. Hair highlights. Hair is usually like a crown or the light along the top of the highlights. It's where it catches the most direct lighting. This helps to show the shape and the flow of the hair. Then jewelry and shiny surfaces. Smooth, reflective surface like jewelry bounces the light directly back, causing small, intense highlight spots. Unlike rough surfaces, which scatters in many directions, these surfaces concrete the light into brighter and more focused reflection. Oh wow, Smiley, this is a lot of info to intake. How can we remember? Well, that's a good question. To keep it short, remember to keep them small, highlights that can stay consistent in size so they don't overpower the form or making the surface look unrealistically shiny. And keeping them controlled, placing them intentionally only where the light actually hits, instead of adding them all over the place. When we use it correctly, these small details can help your lighting look more believable and realistic. Adding the final touches also brings out the strong and 3D feel. And finally, adjusting the colors to bring the whole image together. Lighting and shadows can strongly change the mood, and small tweaks help unify the scene. Filters that you could use is hue, saturation, lightness. These adjusts the color tone, vibrancy, and brightness. Color balance shifts the colors and shadows, midtones, and the highlights. For example, like cooler shadows and warmer highlights. You can find these under filters, adjustments, edit, or tonal correction in most drawing programs. I won't go in depth into color theory, just experiment with these sliders and see what makes your character feel more connected to the environment. For more info, you can check color theory guides at this link. It will be linked in the description for those who are interested. Step 7 is the reflective light. This is the lighting that appears inside the shadows areas because of the environment around your subject. First, add a new layer above and set it to clipping mask. How to apply it is to gently place it into parts of your shadows that will catch the bounced lighting from nearby surfaces. this softens the darkest part, preventing shadows from looking flat. It can also help with making the lighting feel more natural, grounded, and connected to the environment, adding extra depth to your form. Now, referring back to the spear guy, you don't need to have a separate casting shadow, core shadows, or accent into your drawing steps, but being aware of them helps you understand reflective lighting interacts with the shadows, so keep that in mind. Common beginner's mistakes. Using pure white for lighting and pure black for shadows. As I mentioned, avoid using pure white for lighting or pure black for shadows, as this can make your shadows looking harsh and unnatural. Instead, using a lighter tone of your base color for the lighter areas and darker tinted version of your base color for shadows. Too many light sources. Having multiple light sources can get confusing really fast. Stick to one main light source until you're comfortable with basic lighting. Adding too many too fast makes it harder to keep up with your shadows consistently. Ignoring light directions. If your light source doesn't stay consistent, your shadows will start looking confused. Always to keep track where your light source is coming from. Remember, to do this, you could always draw a small arrow from the side of your canvas to remind yourself where the light is coming from. Overblending. Blending too much removes the contrast and makes everything feel blurry. Keep some edge sharp so your lighting still has some structure. Beginner tips. Using clipper mats is your best friend. They always let you draw freely without drawing outside the lines. And since they are a separate layer, you can always change your mind and delete or modify the layer without ruining your colors. 2. Lowering your opacity instead of erasing. If shadows or highlights look too intense, try lowering the opacity of the layer it's on instead of erasing it. It's a much more faster way of fixing mistakes and helps you blend into light gradually. 3. Flipping your canvas often. Flipping the canvas helps you spot the mistakes that you might not even notice. It gives a fresh perspective of your drawing. 4. Practicing in grayscale first. Grayscale helps you focus on the values, how light or dark something is, without worrying about colors. Once your grayscale lighting looks readable and believable, adding colors later on makes it much more easier. Working in grayscale is important because it allows you to focus on the contrast in your art. Sorting out by this balance of black and white first ensures you that how your final colors will look intentionally and balanced. 5. Keeping it simple. Focus on one single lighting source and clear shadows before adding extra lighting, effects, or details. A lot of artists try to jump straight forward into advanced lighting, but skipping the basic slows the improvement down. Start to fully understand on how one single lighting works. Like I showed you previously, before adding more, getting comfortable with how your lighting interacts with your character makes it easier to handle trickier things later on. It's where you're able to apply your knowledge into complex pieces, like glowing objects or colorful rim lighting. Start simple, then take bigger challenges. Wow, that was a lot of info and take. But it's time to start actually practicing. Start with the simple lighting on a basic object or on a single character first. Then slowly move on to the more complex stuff like understanding how light works on multiple figures or in a full scene. You can't really just jump into drawing full detailed illustration without really understanding them first. Feel free to share any questions or your own personal tip in the comments. I hope this helped or at least made things a bit easier to understand. And I'll see you next time, goobers. Bye-bye.